This is the biggest takeaways from NFL wildcard weekend, and man, what a first week of the playoffs. There were a couple of blowouts.
Absolute shite.
The Houston Texans demolished the Los Angeles Chargers, and not gonna lie, like Joe Mixon said, they're smoking on that Rex Ryan pack.
We're smoking on that Rex Ryan bye-week pack.
Crazy. A lot of people picked the Chargers. I'm not gonna lie, I was one of them just because how they're playing and trending and how the Texans, how they've been great defensively, but offensively they've been up and down. But hey, they showed up on Saturday and they certainly do have a Super Bowl level defense, and we'll see them go against the Chiefs in the second round of the divisional round in Arrowhead. So that's gonna be a really good matchup there.
Another blowout that took place was a matchup between the Minnesota Vikings and the Los Angeles Rams. Oh my goodness. Sam Darnold was sacked 9 times. Bro, that Rams defense just absolutely got to him in the past 2 weeks. In my opinion, I think Sam Darnold lost him a lot of money. I mean, that's just what it is. It's facts. I hate it, but bro, like, he was seeing ghosts out there, and we'll talk about that more later. The Rams, they'll be playing against the Eagles in the divisional round. That'll be a really good matchup, seeing Matthew Stafford go against the Eagles defense and vice versa. With how the Rams defense play, it'll be interesting to see them play against Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense. So certainly a compelling matchup from that standpoint.
The Baltimore Ravens destroyed the Pittsburgh Steelers, winning 28-14, and it was 21-0 at halftime. We knew what time it was. The Steelers really limped into the playoffs, losing 4 straight games in the regular season and then really losing 5, ultimately losing a playoff game. So a lot of conversations about potentially Mike Tomlin's future, and we'll talk about coaching news later after we talk about all the games and things of that nature. The Bills dominated the Broncos, winning 31-7, and we're going to see the matchup really between the two MVP candidates in the divisional round, Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens against Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. That's going to be a beautiful game. Looking forward to it. It's going to be absolute cinema, and a lot of people will be like, basically the winner of that game will be MVP. I mean, of course it is a regular season award. In my opinion, Lamar's the MVP, but it's going to be a really good game on primetime on CBS, so that's one to look forward to. And then Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders on Sunday Night Football beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with a game-winning field goal. Jaden Daniels having another game-winning drive. It's just impressive, the rookie season that he has had, and having one of the great rookie seasons that we've ever seen, to be honest with you. And the Commanders, they'll be playing against the Lions, the #1 seed on the road, but I wouldn't just necessarily count them out. That'll be a really good game too, so we'll break that game down. Of course, we'll talk about the Eagles and Packers, which the Eagles really out-physical the Packers for a majority of the game, and Jordan Love didn't have a good showing and had 2 of his receivers hurt in the game as well too, so that hurt them. But we're going to talk about that game. Then of course finishing off with Monday Night Football with a matchup between the Los Angeles Rams and the Minnesota Vikings. So yes sir, playoffs are here. It just started, and this is where legends are made. Before we dive in to talk about these wild card games, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe and turn on post notifications. You know what we post about here, videos about the NBA, NFL, Marvel, DC, pop culture, all types of things of that nature. Also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at SwaggerUs, and if TikTok doesn't get deleted, follow me on TikTok at SwaggerUs02 for cooking videos, shorts, reels, all types of videos and things like that. And with that being said, let's talk about these NFL wild card playoff games. Yes sir.
Hey, man. Hey, outstanding job by everybody. How was that bye week?
So this game between the Houston Texans and the Chargers, I had the honor of working, thank God, and I'll show some, B-roll and footage I got. These are nature while I was there. It was really cool. And the Texans, they dominated the Chargers, winning 32-12. Like I said, I picked the Chargers to win this game like a lot of people did, and I look foolish for that. Yes, I know Texans fans, and I'm from the Houston area, so yeah, make me a meme, but they looked really impressive. And I talked about the defense, forcing Justin Herbert to throw 4 interceptions. That's wild, man. And of course, having that pick 6, Derek Stingley having 2 interceptions, Amari Lassiter also having 1 too. This defense is really balanced and versatile, and you're seeing D'Amico Ryan's brilliance as not only a head coach, but defensive wise, why he was so successful in San Francisco, and why the Texans, like I mentioned, have a Super Bowl level defense is really just for the offense to get things going together. And they were stagnant, I'm not going to lie, in the first half mostly, but when Nico Collins got that receiving touchdown, I think that's when they were starting to get their rhythm right before halftime. And then in the third quarter, that's when they were able to open things up defensively, and the offense complemented that. And then also Joe Mixon had that touchdown in the fourth quarter, really just to seal things, having 25 carries for 106 rushing yards and a touchdown. And the Texans, they're going to face the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead. Really a rematch. I know it's a totally different team now, but a rematch from 5 years ago in a divisional round when the Texans had a 25-0 lead over the Chiefs before the Chiefs came back and dominated that game. That's going to be interesting. A lot of Texans fans are going to be up for that matchup, and we'll see how it goes. For the Texans perspective, I'm intrigued by the matchup of CJ Stroud versus Patrick Mahomes and how that will be. The Chiefs have a certainly great defense, so it's going to be tough, and the Texans have had their offensive line struggles at times. But if there's a matchup for CJ Stroud to break out and have, performances like he's had last year, and not necessarily, in my my opinion, having a sophomore slump, a lot of people have considered this year that for him. I think it's just been a lot of inconsistency in terms of that. He hasn't looked his greatest, but I think this is a game where he could break out in. We will see what happens. From their perspective in Houston, despite having an up and down season offensively, they were still able to win another playoff game. And now D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud have a 2-1 playoff record, and we'll see if it becomes 2-2 after playing against the Chiefs, or if they can, for the first time in franchise history, reach the conference championship round. But for the Chargers, man, I know a lot of people have been frying them, especially Justin Herbert, for not having a good performance. But considering this was year one with Jim Harbaugh and they had a 5-12 record last season, I think it's very impressive that they were able to have an 11-6 record and make the playoffs as a 5 seed in the first year with a new head coach and a new staff and a new culture. So I think the only way is up for Los Angeles. Yes, they're gonna have to make some improvements offensively and defensively in areas, but it's impressive they were able to get this far. But for the Houston Texans, that game against Kansas City is gonna be really good, and I'm looking forward to it. And it's a good win for H-Town.
Yeah, I seen signs of growth for sure. From past, the first year I've been here, just way more growth for sure.
Does that make you optimistic going forward?
Nah.
The Baltimore Ravens really dominated the Steelers, winning 28-14. In my opinion, the game still felt further from that. I know the Steelers tried to rally back a little bit in the second half and got those 2 touchdowns, but ultimately it was really over at halftime when the Ravens were up 21-0. And man, the Steelers lost essentially 5 games in a row, didn't win at all in the month of December. They're going to have to ask themselves a lot of questions, man, especially on the Mike Tomlin component, because he's a great coach. Like, he's a top 3 to 5 head coach in the league, in my opinion. Never had a losing season, things of that nature, but you haven't won a playoff game since the 2016-17 season. Have lost 6 straight playoff games. I don't know, man. Are the Steelers going to end up having a new head coach? And I'll have more meaning to that, more depth on what I mean by that later, after I talk about the games and talk about the coaching news and things like that. Will they be willing to trade him? I don't know, but it wasn't a great performance at all from the Steelers, and they've been stagnant, like I said, for the past month plus. But now moving on to the Baltimore Ravens, I think it's time, man. It's now or never for the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, they're still going to have a couple of years with this iteration of the team, and this is year 1 with Derrick Henry a part of the Ravens roster, but it's time. They played really good. Lamar Jackson didn't have to throw the ball too much, completed 16 out of his 21 passing attempts, throwing for 175 yards and 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry, though, that's who I talked about in the intro, almost having 200 rushing yards with 186 rushing yards on 26 carries and 2 touchdowns. Don't get me started on that stiff arm Derrick Henry had against Minka Fitzpatrick. Oh my goodness. And Lamar Jackson also had 81 rushing yards. Then Isaiah Likely had 53 receiving yards. Rashad Bateman had a receiving touchdown, and so did Justice Hill. So the team, they're looking really like a well-oiled machine, and I'm excited for this matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. It's going to be a really good one. We saw them play earlier in the season. 2 totally different teams, I would say right now, but the Ravens did win 35-10 in convincing fashion. This time it's going to be in Buffalo, so we'll see how it goes. I'm excited for it. In my opinion, like I said, I think Lamar Jackson is the MVP. He's literally had the best season of his career this season, especially as a passer. He's leading Josh Allen in every statistical category, so I really don't know how you can argue Josh Allen for the award, besides of the expectations, which I really don't know why people thought they would have a down year, even though they traded Amari Cooper and got rid of some defensive veterans. But I can expand more on that MVP conversation and check out the MVP video that I made a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. But yeah, it's going to be a really good one, and we're going to talk about the Buffalo Bills next. But how the Baltimore Ravens defense has been playing really since like week 13. They've been at the top of the league, so we're going to see how opportunistic that defense will be, if they can make life hard for Josh Allen, because if they do, we could be seeing the Ravens right back in the AFC Championship game for a 2nd year in a row, and it's a good win for Baltimore. So I'm not gonna lie, when the Denver Broncos scored that touchdown in the first quarter, in the first 3 minutes, I was like, uh-oh, is Buffalo on upset alert? They're like, nah, and they ended up scoring 31 unanswered points, winning the game 31-7. And Josh Allen, he had a really good game. I know y'all saw that dot that he had to Ty Johnson. That was a lethal touchdown. How he's able to extend plays, just display his athleticism and his throwing ability, it's amazing to watch, and that's why he is a legit MVP candidate, and it's gonna be a really good matchup between the Bills and the Ravens next week, even though I think Lamar's the MVP. But you're just seeing Josh Allen's excellence week in and week out and distributing it to different weapons. And speaking of his weapons, James Cook, he had 23 carries for 120 rushing yards and a touchdown. Curtis Samuel had that long receiving touchdown. Khalil Shakir had 61 receiving yards. Kincaid had 47 receiving yards, and then Ty Johnson, like I said, he had that touchdown. So the Bills, they look really good. Like I said, it's going to be a good matchup against the Ravens. I'm looking forward to it on prime time, man. Hey, we're going to find out. It's going to be a really good game. We've seen Josh Allen. He's had a really successful playoff record. I think now it's a 6-4 record. The only team that he loses to the most, of course, is the Chiefs, and you really won't put that past him, but we'll see who's going to show up more, him or Lamar, or are both of these players going to have great individual performances, and is it going to be a nail biter? I think that's what everyone hopes for. Hopefully there's no duds. Hopefully it's not a blowout, because that's the final game on Sunday night, so that's going to be really good. But moving on to the Broncos perspective, just like I talked about with the Chargers, no one really expected them to make the playoffs. This is the 2nd year of Sean Payton in this coaching position in Denver, having to deal with the salary cap contract still of paying Russell Wilson, even though he's not on the team anymore. No one expected this team to really do a lot, and still defensively defensively, offensively, they played great. On the defense, they led the league in sacks with 63, I believe, in the regular season. Having a great defensive coordinator in Vance Joseph, arguably having the defensive player of the year in Pat Surtain, but this team just obviously isn't on the level of the Buffalo Bills, and we saw that on full display. Like I said, they had that touchdown in the first half, but besides that, they weren't really able to get anything going. But Bo Nix, I believe he should be second or third in Offensive Rookie of the Year after Jaden Daniels and then Brock Bowers. I think Brock Bowers, he had an amazing season, but Bo Nix, he had a really good year, and it's showing why Sean Payton believed in him. But yeah, Buffalo, Baltimore. Next week, stay tuned for it, guys. I know y'all are ready for it. Let me know in the comments down below who you're gonna pick. And yeah, Buffalo got the win. So in this game between the Green Bay Packers and the Philadelphia Eagles, I thought it was gonna be more competitive as the Eagles won 22-10, but the Eagles were up 10-0 essentially in the first half. And with Christian Watson getting hurt in the final game of the regular season, then Romeo Doubs and Jaden Reed getting hurt in this game against the Eagles, you kind of knew that really everything was falling apart for Green Bay and that they were gonna inevitably lose the game. But they showed a little fight. Josh Jacobs was impressive in this game. He had a nice few rushes and had 18 carries for 81 rushing yards and a touchdown, but ultimately those 3 picks that Jordan Love had didn't help. It just seems like at times he's more Brett Favre than Aaron Rodgers in terms of he's always trying to get the big play, the splash play, taking shots instead of taking what the defense gives him, taking the checkdowns at times and just being smart with the football. So that's something that Jordan Love is going to have to improve going into his 3rd season as the full-time starter. But they do have a lot of talent there, just for them to get it together and to have a good foundation, because Matt LaFleur, he's a really good coach, but there's still an element that they have to be true contenders. But for the Philadelphia Eagles, you saw their physical style of football in the trenches, offensively and defensively, having both one of the best units on offensive line and defensive line in the league. And Jalen Hurts, his first game back, wasn't the most impressive, but he did what he needed to. He completed 13 out of his 21 passing attempts for 131 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns. Saquon Barkley had 25 carries for 119 rushing yards. Really would have had another touchdown if he would have ran at the end of the game, but he was just trying to let the clock run down and be safe, and that's respectable for sure. And also Dallas Goedert, oh my goodness, he had a mean 3 to 4 stiff arms on his defender on the way to the end zone. That was a tough play for sure, and he had that touchdown. And also Jahan Dotson had his first touchdown as a Philadelphia Eagle in this game. So it was a really good win for the Eagles. I know some of their fans weren't satisfied in the first half because the Green Bay Packers, they were playing good defensively, but like I said, their offense just wasn't able to get things going against the Eagles, who have arguably the best defense remaining in the playoffs, although the Chiefs and the Texans. But it was an impressive win for the Eagles, and they're going to play against the Los Angeles Rams, who we'll be talking about shortly. That'll be a really good game. I know a lot of people are going to favor the Eagles. I believe that they're like 8-point favorites. Don't quote me too much because I'm not really at all a betting expert, but it'll be a really good game. I won't underestimate the Rams, but that'll be a nice watch because how the Rams offense looks right now and their defense in particular, it's going to be a tough game and really a battle of the trenches. But it was a good win for Philadelphia. And for the Green Bay Packers, I think they're a year away. I think next year they could potentially be one of these teams that could be a top seed, but of course you have to compete with Detroit, and we'll see how Minnesota does things in 2025. But they still have some ways to go, and they have to consider upgrading at some positions offensively, especially with the injuries that they're dealing with. But Philadelphia will see you on Sunday. Before breaking this game down, I want to send my prayers and thoughts to all the people affected by the California wildfires in Los Angeles and all of the California area. It's truly a devastating time. God is with you, and it's tough because homes are full of memories, but the Lord is with you throughout all situations and circumstances, and all of that stuff is replaceable, but your life is not replaceable. So that's the most important thing, and I'm glad they were able to play this game in Arizona. Shout out to the league for getting that done. But the Rams, you saw they played inspired football, and they played for that community. 9 sacks total in the game, 6 in the first half, all accumulating for 82 yards of lost offense for the Minnesota Vikings. That's what the Los Angeles Rams defense did to Sam Darnold and the Vikings, winning in a dominant and convincing fashion, 27-9. Really, the game was over at halftime. It was 24-3. You saw the writing on the wall. I know a lot of people are going to have their controversies about that forward pass that Matthew Stafford had. Blake Cashman ended up doing a scoop and score for a touchdown, but it got called back because this Vikings offense wasn't able to do anything against the Rams defense. And like I said earlier about the Eagles playing against the Rams, it's going to be a battle of the trenches. Make no mistake, because Jared freaking Verse, I know he didn't have any sacks, but he had that scoop and score touchdown, and he's easily going to be, in my opinion, the defensive rookie of the year. Be on the watch for what this Rams defense could potentially do to the Eagles. I know Jalen Hurts, he's efficient in ways in the RPO game and things of that nature, but the Rams, they send 4, and also they were pretty efficient in their blitz. Minnesota Vikings have been one of the best offenses in the league this year, and same with the Eagles, even though those are 2 different style of teams. But don't necessarily just count out the Rams in this game because it's going to be a good one. But what Shula has done in his first year as a defense coordinator in Los Angeles, and then also, in my opinion, Sean McVay just really outcoached Kevin O'Connell, who O'Connell was on the Super Bowl staff for the Rams as offensive coordinator. I think we're seeing the brilliance of Sean McVay and the Rams organization overall, because at one point they were 1-4 on the season. Of course, Aaron Donald retired last year. They're looking for a lot of reinforcements, dealt with injuries to Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, and still were able to withhold all that and be dominant in this game and really putting on for LA during this tough time. And they look good, and they're playing for a lot right now. Matthew Stafford was efficient. He completed 19 out of his 27 passing attempts, going for 209 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. I believe he completed his first 11 passes with no incompletions, so that was a good thing there. Kyrie Williams had 76 rushing yards, and he also had a receiving touchdown. Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp only had 112 receiving yards in total, but they didn't really need to do too much, as I said, because their defense dominated and the offense was able to get in the mix when they needed to. And also Davis Allen had a receiving touchdown as well. So the Rams, like I said, don't count them out in that game against Philadelphia, because it's going to be a really good one. For Minnesota, man, I talked about in the beginning, I think Sam Darnold lost him a lot of money in these past 2 games, because when you look potentially at these teams that may need a quarterback, or with Minnesota, your last 2 games are what's on film, and they were disastrous games. They looked more of like the Sam Darnold that we saw in New York. And obviously you can roast the O-line for Minnesota, but still, in a Lions game, for example, there was a lot of opportunities for Sam Darnold to get the ball to open players, but he was holding on to the ball too long, and that attributed to all the sacks in the Lions game, but also to these 9 sacks in a game against the Rams. So it was a bad performance. We'll see what Minnesota does in 2025, because I certainly think it's JJ McCarthy time. But yeah, the Rams and Eagles on Sunday afternoon, it's going to be a really good one.
So before I get into my predictions for the NFC and AFC divisional rounds, I want to go through the NFL coaching cycle real quick. Of course, in New England, head coach Mike Vrabel was formally introduced as the New England Patriots head coach, former player there, obviously won 3 Super Bowls. We knew that he was going to be the head coach there once Gerard Mayo was fired, and I just don't like how they did Gerard Mayo. If you didn't really see him long term as being the next head coach and heir apparent to Bill Belichick, you could have just hired him to Mike Vrabel's staff and hired Mike Vrabel last year when he was fired from Tennessee. So that's really my take on that situation. He is going into a good deal though, because Drake May looked really good in his rookie season as a starting quarterback, and then they're going to have the 4th pick in the 2025 draft, also around $100 million in cap space. So they'll have some options to go get some weapons and talent and depth for their New England Patriots team. So that's a good thing for Mike Vrabel. And then shifting gears, of course, I got to talk about my favorite team, the Dallas Cowboys, parting ways with Mike McCarthy. I have a lot of issues with the whole situation, just in terms of, if you knew that you were going to get rid of him, Jerry Jones, why did you block the Bears from being able to interview him last week just to part ways with him this week? I just don't understand how Jerry Jones does things, man. It's really annoying as a fan. I'm 22 years old. I've never seen the Cowboys win at a significant level, never seen them get out of divisional round. It just sucks, man. And all the conversations about Deion Sanders, apparently CD Lamb liked the post about potentially Deion Sanders being the coach there. I don't know. I just don't want it. And they're not going to get rid of Dak first and foremost. I know Deion Sanders has talked about in the past he would only coach in the NFL if it's Shador and Shiloh. Well, we're not doing that, not going to lie. We don't want that. So, hey, I love Deion Sanders and what he's done in Colorado and for Jackson State, and overall as a coach, he's a really good coach, but I just don't want him in Dallas. In my opinion, I want someone like Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn, or in a fantasy, which I know is not going to happen, trading for Mike Tomlin. I don't know. I just want the Cowboys to get someone young and innovative that has a great offensive mind that can also develop a culture. But under Jerry Jones, it's all about him and how he wants to win. He's just so stubborn and arrogant. I just hate it. So that's the reality as a Cowboys fan at this point. I just really don't care what they do. Ideally, for me, I would want them to, like I said, get Ben Johnson, because if they got Ben Johnson as the head coach, I think CD Lamb would win Offensive Player of the Year next season. Like, that's the type of play calling that he could do and just getting into that system. But you never know, man, with these offense coordinators too, as well as head coaches. Aaron Glenn, he's a great defensive coordinator, and I think he would be able to do great things as head coach there too, but I just don't know. Like I said, we'll see what the Cowboys do. They were quote unquote all in last year, didn't do anything in free agency. That was frustrating. We'll see what they do in the draft. With the 12th pick, I want them to get Ashton Genty if Genty isn't available, and I want them to get Luther Burden or someone like that. Get some more weapons and also some interior depth on the offensive line and defensive line. So yeah, that's just my pitch, but that's really mostly all the coaching news. There's still a good amount of openings. I know the Saints and the Bears are interested in Mike McCarthy, and there's other jobs available. The New York Jets, I think that's the least appealing in my opinion. A lot of people would probably agree, but yeah, that's the coaching cycle news right now. So predicting the NFL divisional round games for the AFC and NFC, starting off with Saturday, the matchup between the Houston Texans and the Kansas City Chiefs. Like I said, I was at the game. The Texans were super competitive in that game. That defense is lethal. They have a Super Bowl caliber type of defense, but I'm still going to pick the Chiefs because they have a Super Bowl caliber defense too, and they've won 2 Super Bowls in the past 3 years and trying to three-peat and be the first team ever to do so. I certainly see the Chiefs defense and Chris Jones attacking the freak out of the Texans offensive line because they are suspect at times too. I could see CJ Stroud having a solid game, but I don't know, man, because we saw them play a few weeks ago too, and there's constant pressure, and now not having weapons like Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs out, and obviously they have Nico Collins and he's going to get his, even though the Chiefs have a solid secondary too. I just think that the Chiefs are going to win this game and advance to the AFC Championship game again and try to get to the Super Bowl again. The Texans, they're 0-5 in the divisional round in their franchise history, and this would be the first time if they win the game to be in the AFC Championship game in their franchise, but I just don't think it's going to happen this year, but we will see. I could be wrong, just like I was wrong about the Chargers game. Then moving to the Saturday night game between the Detroit Lions and the Washington Commanders. I'm not going to be too long about this game. I think the Lions are going to win. Shout out to the Commanders. They had an impressive win over Tampa Bay. Jaden Daniels, Offensive Rookie of the Year easily. Very slippery, very athletic quarterback, and the Lions defense Hasn't played against a quarterback like that this year, but I just think that the Lions are going to win. How hot they are. Defensively, they lost so many weapons, and still they've been able to withstand that and play great football under Aaron Glenn, who's going to be a head coach, probably out of this cycle. So yeah, I think the Lions are going to advance to the NFC Championship game for a second year in a row. And Washington, they have had a great season. First playoff win since 2005, but I think they're going to lose this game. And then moving to Sunday, the matchup between the Los Angeles Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles, I think this is going to be really good too, because I talked about it when I was breaking down the games. These defenses in the Los Angeles Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles, they are both great in the trenches, and the Eagles offensive line, arguably the best in the league. They are fantastic in the trenches, and they have a few Pro Bowlers as well. That's going to be a really compelling game. But Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, I think that they'll be able to try to test those defensive backs in Philadelphia, even though they've been great with Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, Darius Slay, a lot of weapons there. And I know Eagles fans might hate me. They're probably going to be like, oh, you're a Cowboys fan. Of course you're going to say this. But low-key, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to pick the Rams to upset the Eagles. That could be crazy. The Rams could get whooped. I know what happened when these two teams played last time on week 12. Saquon Barkley had 255 rushing yards and 2+ runs, 70-yard touchdowns. That was insane and diabolical. But I think certainly the Rams are going to stack the box to try to limit that, and that's going to open opportunities for A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. But the Rams offense, I think that they have the potential to take off. It's going to be tough against that Eagles defense. And I'm going to pick the upset. I was 3 for 3 in the wild card round, and I want to mix things up a little bit. I want to at least pick one upset. So I'm going to pick the Rams to beat the Eagles. I could be wrong, but hey, who knows? We will see. Obviously, the Eagles should win, but I'm picking the Rams in this game. And then last game on Sunday night, the big matchup, the biggest matchup between the two MVP candidates, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Bills-Ravens. And in this game, I'm going to pick the Ravens. I know the Bills, they've been great this year. The second seed, one of two teams to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the regular season. Really the only team. I mean, come on now. The Broncos, that game was against the Chiefs backups. But anyways, the Bills, they've been having a great season. Josh Allen has been individually having a great season. But Lamar Jackson has been having his best season. And now having Derrick Henry, the defense playing better. Weapons like potentially Zay Flowers returning, Rashad Bateman, Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews. I just think this Ravens offense is going to hone into the running game. They made that mistake last year in the AFC Championship game, and they're not going to do that anymore. They're going to hand Derrick Henry the ball off and let him cook. We saw what they did when they played earlier in the season, winning 35-10. These two teams are certainly different now, but the Ravens won by 25 points for a reason in that matchup. The Bills defense did not have an answer for Derrick Henry, and I don't think that they'll have an answer for him again. And for Lamar Jackson, I think it's going to be a really good performance, but make no mistake, I think Josh Allen is going to have a great game, but I just think the Ravens will win. So after this upcoming weekend in the divisional round, I believe that it's going to be in the AFC Championship game, the Chiefs and the Ravens, a rematch from last year's AFC Championship game, and then in the NFC, I think it's going to be the Lions and the Rams. Two quarterbacks playing their former teams, and Jared Goff playing the Rams and Matthew Stafford playing against the Lions. So those will be good matchups. We will see what will happen. I know a lot of people probably mostly will think it's going to be the Eagles and Lions, but hey, only time will tell. So yeah, guys, let me know in the comments down below what you think about the biggest takeaways from NFL wildcard weekend. Let me know your thoughts. I appreciate you guys watching. Always make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at SwaggerUs. More videos are on the way about the NBA, NFL, Marvel, DC, pop culture, all things like that as we continue with the NFL playoffs going into divisional round weekend, then the championship weekend and Super Bowl talk, and then also free agency and draft talking. And along with that, we'll have more videos about the NBA as the season ramps up going into All-Star weekend, into the playoffs and things of that nature and predictions like that. So y'all be blessed. Know that God loves you. Keep Jesus first. Despite what you've done in your life, there's grace for you and there's love always. So y'all have a good one. Y'all be blessed. And thank you guys always.